Hey, welcome back, guys. I'm Top Black, your essential drummer, and welcome to episode number 5. Yes, the sexy fied. I apologize. I'm just kidding. But hello, what are you doing? You're going to listen. That's right. So I'm going to interest you in some really cool educational stuff. This is basically about piano bar gigs and my viewpoint on it, and basically how to get through the gig. And piano gigs are fun. If you know the music, you're going to have a fun time because everyone else who's drunk and all that, including piano players sometimes, or you're going to have a great time playing. And so it's a very crucial thing, like piano bar gigs. So what is a piano bar gig and all that, you may ask? Well, it's at a piano and it's at a bar, and basically my viewpoint about karaoke bars, piano bars is basically they play the hits from like Billy Joel, Elton John, or just all the recent karaoke hits, like maybe something from Lizzo and all that. I actually played something from Lizzo, and that's when I got to show off a little bit because he wanted it. But it's basically like piano bars are kind of like karaoke type of settings where you make these requests. And so these are really cool gigs, and they actually pay well, guys. They actually do. Like, it's really nice to have a piano bar gig because it's fun and it pays the bills. Yes, that's right. So this is basically episode specifically for the drummers. And there's sometimes that I see some drummers that don't get the format at all, and so I want to demystify that and to help y'all out. So I want to just first mention this, because this is really important. All right, are you ready? It's not about you, okay? That's right. Oh, that's right. I roasted myself, and it's true. It's not about you. So usually when we play these piano bar gigs, we are hired to do a job. And most of the time when we're doing these gigs, we are hired to do a specific task. And no, it's not going to show off my chops, gospel chops like from those Instagram drummers. It's not about that. It is about the music. It's about doing your job. And so you don't want to be those drummer that shows off all the time. That's a good way to get fired. It's like, oh, that guy, oh yeah, he just does a bunch of gospel chops. And it's like, he played this thing during a ballad. It's like, what, a ballad? Yeah, a ballad. And so you can be like a responsible musician. It's not about you. It's about the piano player. So here's my advice for that, is that whenever you have a new piano player, you always talk to him. You have to try to get the opportunity to talk to him and say, hey, is there anything that I could do to help make your life better and all that? So in a different wording of what I just did, but to the point where it's like, what do you want me to do mostly? Like, how may I help you get through the gig? And so usually most of the time it's just play a groove and just have fun. And usually they'll say like, I'm one of those interesting fellas. Okay, I'm one of those interesting fellas that you sometimes you get those people that are like very interesting, or it's like, okay, on this one I'll do this, and if you see me do this with my hand, then that means like stop, and I'll just give you some cues, and that's really important. And when you have a jazz degree or like just some jazz experience, you're going to have a great time with these piano bar gigs, because those jazz guys, especially me, we are trained to use our ears, like really listen to the music and what it actually needs. And so that's the next thing, is listening. So listening is just a podcast episode of itself. Listening is super crucial for the piano bar gig, because piano bar, it's so improvised to the point where it's like some people make a request, like for example, Jethro Tull, and it's like modern people who might be like maybe under their 30s who are doing piano bar gigs is like, who's Jethro Tull? And they lost money, and so they're like, oh my gosh, I gotta know some Jethro Tull now and all that. I lost about $20. Yes, people tip that much for a song request, especially drinking and all that. Sometimes you might get more, but that's the biggest I've seen so far for piano bar gigs. is for the request whip is like $20 for just one piece of paper, so they could just hear Lizzo or something like that, or Beyonce or Eminem. Listening is super crucial because you have to really know your environments. You have to know the song, what it needs. So listening is super crucial because everything's improvised. So when you're listening and all of that, so sometimes you kind of have a reference. Oh, it's this. This is this song. Oh, okay. Let's do this melody, and sometimes. No, not sometimes. I was thinking something else. I was thinking you change it up, but do not change it up. They usually want to hear what they want to hear. And so it's really important to listen for the cues. It's really important to listen to where it ends, when it starts, when to come in. And so it's really important to listen because when you listen to like what the piano player does, if he plays this like interesting like which is like da 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 da, and so the drums probably you could do two things. You could do either a call response or you can mimic what he did, or you could displace it of what he did. And so you could just do a call response type of thing. So that's a really cool thing to do during a piano bar gig. The next thing I want to mention is knowing the material. So with these piano bar gigs, you have to be as versatile as possible. So the best advice I could give you is like the person who hired you, look them up, find their website, and they usually have an example list of songs that they know or possibly know, because it's impossible to know everything. Like it's possible to be omniscient, like a god and all that. So it's really important to be as omniscient as possible, like omnipresence with the music. So you should possibly know like Motown stuff, like the popular stuff. You should know like the popular like dance hits, like it's the Monster Mash and all that type of stuff, or shout and Vanny shout and all that. So these are really important. Like they're kind of like karaoke type of stuff, to where you're really getting the audience engaged, because it's like a jiving tune. It was like jive. So it's really important to know Motown stuff. It's really important to know like all the hits, whether if it's from the 70s, 80s, 90s, OEs, or current stuff of today. Like maybe Lizzo. I've been mentioning Lizzo a lot because that's what I played during a piano bar gig. That's really, really recent. And there might be times where it's like, I really hate Justin Bieber and all that. Or I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there might be a time where it's like there might be a group that you're against playing to. And you're like, well, I'm getting paid to play it, so, oh well, I don't care. And so you want to be able to have that ability to know everything, where if it's like jazz, where it's like classical, pop, electronic. There are times that people play like some electronic stuff, like a pop electronic stuff, or like just make maybe dubstep. So this just in general, like try to know as much. Oh gosh, me and my articulations. Know as much as possible, because that's pretty much how you're going to survive, especially the hits, the piano guy hits, which is like Elton John, Billy Joel. Like you really have to know those to be an effective musician, because once you know those tunes very well, then, and use your ears too, to where that you use your ears is like, okay, are we going to the chorus? Oh wait, no, it sounds like a pre-chorus. Okay, we're going to go over there. So you have a little bit of ear and intuition type of thing that's going on, and I'll mention an exercise to help with your intuition and your musical ability to judge that. So let me mention that exercise real quick. So this intuition exercise that will actually help you out with your piano bar stuff is, you can do this anywhere. And if you're a drummer, yeah, this is mainly for drummers and all that, but if you're not a drummer, then you could tell this to your friends, this cool exercise. So you can do this where you're in class or out in public, and so what you're going to do is like you're going to predict what the rhythm is, what a person is saying. So for example, if you're listening to me, try to tap out what the rhythm I'm doing, because it's going to be pretty cool and all that. So you're guessing the other, not you, but you're guessing the other person. Like if you're judging, if you're tapping my rhythm and all that, then you are working. I gotcha. You're working on your intuition to where you're guessing the rhythms. And so this kind of actually does more stuff, actually. It not just helps your intuition, but it actually, it's kind of weird. Like sometimes you actually do that and you're like, man, this guy actually has a really good rhythm. And then like if the person's doing a presentation, then he has this rhythm and it's like, man, you have some pretty solid rhythm. It's like, I was nervous. It's like, but your rhythm is solid. And so this is a pretty cool way of like just getting into more musical abilities. So this exercise does more stuff for you, not just intuition, but it actually, you start to hear the rhythm, you start to see rhythm. And so you're applying it to everyday life. Like I try to do these exercises for everyday life to where it's like, you could become a better drummer no matter what. So it's really important to be as omniscient in these songs as possible. And I would just want to also mention, like, there's some drummers that I want to warn you, and hopefully you're not one of these drummers, but I want to warn you about these types of drummers that could be common. So I earlier mentioned about the gospel chop guy type of guy where he's showing off all of these stuff. So there's this one Instagram drummer, and he's getting pretty famous right now, and he's got insane chops. He's always smoking a cigarette, and he's like just playing hardcore. I'm like, man, this guy's pretty good. But is he going to keep the gig? That's a very good question you do ask. Very good. Something I would ask too. Is he able to keep the gig? And so it depends on musical situations. I'm hoping that sometimes when you have these musical situations, you make a good musical educated guess. And so it's like basically when you hear in school, make an educated guess. And so that's what you want to do with music too. Make an educated guess. Like, should I actually do some gospel chops on this ballad? Is it appropriate? And so this is just one of the downsides about showing off your chops or gospel chops. That's basically only for drum covers where you're like showing off your skills and letting people know, hey, I'm able to do this. And that's when you get to improvise on that. But on a gig, do what is only needed. Like if it's your own band, then yeah, you could do that. But if you're hired to do something, like if you're like a contractor, it's like contractor work where you're hired to do a task, and it's like, we're going to do this task, and we're not going to do anything like out of ordinary because you're out of money a little bit, because you're giving more value than what it actually was supposed to be worth. So just take that into consideration, because basically you're kind of like a contractor. And I realized this after teaching, like whether if it's like substitute teaching, whether it's at school or music lesson place, where you're basically like a contractor, to where that's you are doing a task and this is your rate and this is how much I'm worth at this moment. So it's really important to realize that as a gospel drummer, to not do that at those gigs. It's going to be a little silly if you play some really insane gospel lick. It was like, whoa, that's pretty awesome, but that was a ballad, so don't do that. So, but the only time I will mention you will have the opportunity to show off your gospel chops. For example, Lizzo. I say Lizzo a lot, but there's a purpose. So when we were doing this piano bar song from Lizzo and all that, and I can't remember what the song was called, but it was like that cheesy like piano riff type of thing. Doom 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 doom. It was that one. It was that riff, and so that's a really good track to do a gospel chops on. But I didn't. At first I didn't, and then I was like trying to do like subtle things. So I was like doing like a beat of, and so I was doing that. That was the foundation, and then I was like, and all that. And so the piano player, he's the star of the show, but he started to hear that, and he was like, whoa, you got something to show or what? And so sometimes they like it, sometimes they don't. But if they do like it, they're like, okay, show me what you got. And so it's like, okay. And so you get to show your gospel chops a little bit, show what you have. And make sure you're not too loud, because if you're too loud, then you're going to damage everyone and you. So that's the only thing I could think about as an opportunity to show off your gospel chops is when you have that scenario. So the next thing I want to mention is the showman drummer, which is the drummer that shows off. So this is very overused, and this goes with you're not the star of the show. And so, like, it's so different than, like, just, like, some rock gig from the 80s or the 70s, like, from Def Leppard and all that, to where it's, like, you're showing off and you're, like, one of those hair bands where you're showing off your twirl sticks. It's like, hey, look what I can do between my fingers, yay! And all that type of stuff, where it goes with make a musical educated guess. All right? Do you think it's appropriate? I'm pretty sure you know what the answer is. Hell no. It's not appropriate. Like if you're doing that stick twirl trick all the time, or you're doing like something from the Alice Cooper bands, like the like right now with what was that drummer's name? Glenn Zober. He's a show drummer, and that's what Alice Cooper wants. But in a piano gig, it's not appropriate at all. Like you might think that, oh, this is a good opportunity to show off my skills, like a trick, and to get more tips, but you're stealing the spotlight from the piano man. Yeah, you don't want to steal the spotlight from the piano man, because this is where it's the fine line of being rehired or fired. So, and groove is super important. Like, you do not sacrifice the groove for stick tricks at all. And as the famous Steve Gadd would say, fills are for the frills, but the groove pays the bills, which is super true, and that's because he has experience. And so it's not really important to show off that stuff. And there's some people that I see where they do these stick tricks all the time, 24/7. It's like, man, this guy's very entertaining. But after you do it for a while, it actually starts to get very dull, very boring, and it's very predictable. That's the key word, predictable. As a drummer, our job is to try to be not predictable whenever we're doing certain activities, where it's a fill or showmanship. Because when you're unpredictable, it creates the wow factor, to where that you are unpredictable, and it's like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. And it's kind of like a comedian, where you're saying this joke and it's like, he's right about that. I never thought about that. So then he is very unpredictable about that. But he's right. So it's kind of like a comedian and all that. So that's one thing to consider about the showman drummer, is you might have that opportunity, especially like if you're doing a solo thing, like you do a little bit, but you don't want to do it all the time. Like you're like, that's the only thing you're known for. It's like being a show drummer. So it does create the wow factor a little bit, but over time it's like, I've seen you do that before. Can you do something else? Like just play a sick pocket, sick groove in a good way, a good sick, but not Corona sick. So, so that's pretty much the key elements for a piano bar gig. Because once you understand how to function in a piano bar gig, then you will achieve a lot, and you will possibly get rehired for that piano bar gig. Because sometimes the piano player is like, man, this guy is showing off, and he's showing off his chops. This guy is showing off his stick tricks. Like, it's about me. Like, oh my gosh, it's about me. Like, I wish I had Todd, and or other drummer. Man, I wish I had this guy and all that. Like, he was like, he made me important. He got it in the pocket. He made me important and all that type of stuff. Like, oh, that was so wrong. I apologize for portraying all piano players. That's not what all of them sound like at all. So I apologize for that. But the point is, you want to make the piano player important, because once you do that, you get rehired for that gig. So that's the crucial element that you need to know. So what does he want? He wants this, and this, and this, and that. So I gave you all the tools. So this is pretty much my experience with piano bar gigs. I don't see too much information about piano bar gigs. So I hope you learned a lot of great information for today. And I hope you use it, because that's why I'm doing these podcasts, is for you to understand all these elements, materials, so you actually use them or get exposed to them, because you might live in a town or a country where they actually don't permit piano bars or stuff like that, but you want to get exposed to it. So, yeah. So, hope you've had fun today, guys. Learned something really educational. Don't forget to give me a review and all that. So let me know what you think, and maybe suggested podcast episodes and all that, or who you want to hear on these podcast episodes. So that's going to help me out a lot, and let me know what you think, and what my fan base is a little bit too. So with that being said, I'm Todd Blackman, your drummer, and we'll see you in the next episode.